You're listening to Ask When, the podcast. Folks from all walks of life talk about their daily hustle and bustle, living and celebrating life, sharing tips on becoming champions, especially for those who are muscling mental and physical disabilities. Ask When, the podcast, with your host who has mustered over 30 years living with cerebral palsy and going strong. Author and cerebral palsy advocate Wynn Charles. Ask When, the podcast starts right now.
Welcome to Ask When, everyone. And now I have to pre-warn you, because I was introduced to Yovana by Lee Silverstein of We Have Cancer, because I have been asking you guys for a solid year now. It will be a solid year in May that I lost my own dad to lung cancer, and Lee Silverstein turned around to me and said, "Oh, by the way, I have someone who survived lung cancer, and I want you to interview her." So I am like, okay, that's my wish. And so you guys have to get ready to pull the Kleenex box out. I'll try to be as strong as I can, but as you guys know, I lost my father in 2019, and it's been a struggle. It truly has. And watching him go through lung cancer and his battles made me a stronger person. So with that introduction, I'm going to let Yovana take it away.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Wynn. It's an absolute pleasure. Unfortunate circumstances that we met under, but thank you for opening your platform for me to share my story with your listeners and with the world, so to speak. So my lung cancer, I'm sorry.
I was saying you are so welcome to open up my platform and share your story.
Thank you so much. My lung cancer journey began in April of 2016. So it's coming up on 4 years in a week or so. I was actually a passenger in a motor vehicle accident, and I ended up going to the emergency room to get checked out. And it was there where I was informed that although I did not have any broken bones and it was mostly soft tissue damage, a mass was discovered on my left lung, and I was referred to either follow up with my primary care physician or with a pulmonologist and get that checked out. So I did just that. The following week, I met with my primary care, and I was then referred to see a specialist. It took me about 2 months to see a specialist as a new patient. And during that whole time, I was just wondering, like in the back of my head, like what's this thing growing in my lung, you know? I live in Arizona, and valley fever is a fungal infection of the lung. So when I finally met with the pulmonologist, I had several tests done because I had never smoked in my life. I think lung cancer was the last thing from my mind. So I met in June of 2016. I met with a pulmonologist, and then I was told that because of the location of my tumor, there was nothing she could do for me. She had to refer me to a thoracic surgeon. She did do a few breathing tests just to test out my lung capacity and see if I would be a candidate for surgery. And she said the thoracic surgeon would need the results of those tests. The pulmonologist also went ahead and had me get a PET scan. So by the time I met with the thoracic surgeon, the PET scan results were back and they showed activity. And my breathing test showed that I was a good candidate for surgery should it be needed. At this point, it's end of June, I was recommended to get a CT guided biopsy. So I did do that at the end of June. And on July 5th of 2016, I was informed that the cells were in fact cancerous, and surgery was recommended. And I was in shock because, like I said, I had never smoked. I had followed the rules. I was in my mid-30s. I was pretty healthy and led a pretty active lifestyle. And to hear that I had cancer, but not just any type of cancer, lung cancer, which is typically associated with smoking. And my whole life, that's what had been ingrained in my brain, like, don't smoke because you're going to get lung cancer. And like I said, I had followed all the rules, so I don't understand how I could end up with lung cancer. I did proceed and have lung surgery. I had a lower left lobe lobectomy. They removed the lower lobe of my left lung in July of 2016. And I had informed my HR. I was like, hi, I've been diagnosed with lung cancer. I'm going to have surgery, but I'll be back like in 2 weeks.
Oh boy.
I was a little bit young and naive. And I had never...
That must have been scary for your age.
Right, yeah. I was like, again, young, naive, did not realize what lung surgery would entail. And needless to say, 2 weeks after lung surgery, I was still housebound and had a very difficult time just walking around my neighborhood. To walk around a mile in my neighborhood would take me like 45 minutes, which I thought was the most excruciating thing because 6 months prior, I had just done a half marathon. So 6 months prior, in January 2016, I was running half marathons. And come August of 2016, I'm like, I can barely walk a mile. So I was housebound. I did not go back to work in 2 weeks after my surgery. And that's kind of when it hit me mentally. And I realized I needed to talk to others that had gone through the same thing or were going through the same thing. So I actually did a Google search and I looked up lung cancer support groups. And I was fortunate enough to find one locally. There is a monthly lung cancer support group that met here in the Phoenix area at the Cancer Support Community of Arizona. And I made myself find a way to get there. I wasn't driving at this time just because of the medications I was on, so I had to coordinate family members, friends to come be my personal Ubers, so to speak. Yes. And I had a really good friend come and pick me up. I went to a newcomer meeting, and then we went out to lunch, and then we went back to a gentle yoga class that the Cancer Support Community was offering. And yoga had also been something I had been practicing for years prior to my diagnosis and surgery. So to be able to get back into a space where I could do some of the things I had done prior was great for my psyche. And little by little, I found that I couldn't do the yoga poses I had been doing for years previously because I had like a major surgery. And it took actually the yoga instructor at Cancer Support Community, because after one of the classes, I went up to her and I said, you know what, I can't take a deep breath and I can't hold it for 10 seconds. And I was like really disappointed with myself and with my body. And this instructor, who's now a really good friend of mine, Jill, said, honey, you just had lung surgery. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to let your body heal. And just hearing her say that, it was like, yes, my body's amazing. My body has gone through a lot, like lung surgery is no small feat. And yes, I have to let it heal and I have to be kind to it. And my perspective started to change from that point on. And I still did not know what I wanted to do with my lung cancer story, to be honest. I thought that lung cancer would just be something that happened to me. Let me close the chapter, move on, keep on living my life. I'm still pretty young. And after surgery, like a month after surgery, I was actually referred to an oncologist to see if I would require adjuvant therapy. And in speaking at this point, I had a birthday in between all this, and I was 35. I was 35, met with my oncologist. I was single and had no children. And I told him at some point I would like to get married and have a family. And he informed me that I was stage 1B. The staging for lung cancer. Stage 1 means it's in the organ. It hasn't spread out, metastasized outside of the organ. And the B, the lettering B, is the size of the tumor. So when I had my surgery, they had tested a few lymph nodes to see if there was cancer cells within them. And fortunately for me, there was not. So it appeared that with surgery and them removing the lobe, that's where the mass had been contained. So when I met with the oncologist and we kind of went over my history, he informed me that I was in a gray area with my staging because people diagnosed lung cancer stage 1A do not receive adjuvant therapies, whereas people diagnosed lung cancer stage 2A do receive adjuvant therapies. And he said, you're right in the middle, you're in a gray area. And he recommended that because of my age, that he thought chemo and radiation would be more harmful than beneficial for me at this point in my life. And I think he kind of took into consideration where I was coming from. I'm like, I'm still young, single, eventually I would like to marry, form a family. And I appreciated that. But of course, at this time, I wanted to live. So had they said, you need X, Y, and Z, I would do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. You would have
so it's like
done
my goal.
X, Y, and Z to live.
Right. Yeah, to live. Because I've always said I want to make it to 100 years old. And right here, I'm diagnosed surgery and everything. I'm in my mid-30s. And I'm like, I still have a long time to go if I want to make it to my end goal, 100.
Yeah.
So had the doctors recommended anything further, I would have definitely pursued them actively. He did not recommend adjuvant therapies. I'm still an active patient because I haven't reached the 5-year mark. So I started off with like 3-month CT scans. So every 3 months I would go in for a CT scan just to see if there was any change. And then I graduated to every 6 months. And now I'm at the year mark. So in June, I will be going back for my yearly CT scan, and the last one I had was last summer.
Congratulations on that. Congratulations on that. As you guys know, and this is going to make me cry now, congratulations on that. But as you guys know, my dad actually passed away of a heart attack on May 19th, 2019. I get a call. I'm at home, mind you. He's 4 hours away from me. My stepmom is my stepmom and stepsister 4 hours away from me dealing with him, and I had to go home because I couldn't do it. I could not do the other end. I did it for a week, and then I was brought home. I said I need to go home and get respite. I mean, if you guys want me to come back down, I need 24-hour care. I need to go home. I need to get away. I need to collect me. I need to collect my thoughts. I mean, my my dad, unfortunately, due to his circumstances, which the hospital kicked him out of their facility. They actually put him in a rehab center, which the rehab center did absolutely nothing. And my local hospital sent him home for 9 days on oxygen. So not only were my stepmom, my stepsister, myself, and my aide, who was with me at the time, taking care of him for 9 days, we were all just like, get someone, help us out here. Of course, no one did. No one did. So, unfortunately, when I say congratulations to Yovana, I mean that seriously because my dad didn't make it. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I think that lung cancer is one of those things that is not like breast cancer. It's a hidden disease that needs more awareness. And that's why I brought Yovana on, and that's why I'm sharing the story of my dad, because um, Aspen Valley Hospital did not diagnose him. They said to him and my stepmom that he has a shadow on his lungs. They did not send him to an oncologist. They did not do any of that. He passed away in Denver.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Lynn. And unfortunately, that is the case for many lung cancer patients. And it took me about a year to wrap my head around my own diagnosis, to see where I wanted to pursue, if I wanted to pursue anything. Because like I mentioned earlier, I did think, oh, I'm done with it. Let me close this chapter and move on. A year after, once I hit my 1 year surgery is what I call it, my surgery anniversary date, I realized that I had a story to share and I needed to use it in a positive manner to bring awareness to the world and to remove that stigma that is associated with lung cancer. And that's what I've been doing since then. So
I know.
it's
I know
just,
you have. I follow you on Facebook, my dear, and I see you walking and marching and and I looked up lung cancer walks. I looked up lung cancer walks, and as soon as this other situation is over that we're all going through, my one of my birthday goals is to gather my team together, my stepmom and a couple other team members, and all be in a wheelchair. But one of my goals is to walk in a lung cancer walk for my dad, because I feel like he didn't get the recognition he deserves. I feel like the doctors abandoned him. Number one, he was a grumpy puss. Number two, the doctors didn't know how to deal with him and his grumpiness. And from the time I got down to Denver, he wanted out of that hospital so bad. And if it wasn't for a oxygen specialist, he wouldn't have been diagnosed. He wouldn't have been diagnosed because the doctors didn't want to deal with it, didn't want to deal with my dad. And they just don't want to deal with lung cancer patients in general. And it made me angry because I think that breast cancer is getting all this coverage. And then we're sitting here as, well, I'm sitting here as an advocate for someone who's passed away of lung cancer. Yovana's sitting here as a survivor of lung cancer. And yet we are not getting the respect we need.
Yeah. And I think it's admirable, and I think that's a great way to honor your father, to participate, to form a team in his memory, and to participate in one of your local lung cancer walks. Like, what better way to honor your father than participating in a cause that, in essence, did take him away from you, but used his story in a positive manner, you know?
Well,
and let's raise awareness, and together let's raise awareness. Yeah.
That's something I want to do. And together let's raise awareness. And Lee, I thank you very much for gifting me with Yovana and gifting me with someone who survived lung cancer. And Yovana, as we wrap this interview up, do you have any closing thoughts on what lung cancer patients should be doing and what their caregivers should be doing? Because I was a oblivious caregiver. My stepmom did more of the work than I did, but I wish I stepped in and told these doctors once and for all to help me save my dad. But that's a long story ends up. But I want you to, as we wrap this interview up, do you have any suggestions for people battling lung cancer right now, or a family member who is taking care of a lung cancer patient, or even a friend who's taking care of a lung cancer patient?
Right. Yeah, I think I can do a recommendation across the board for any lung cancer patient, any lung cancer caregiver, anybody that has a loved one with lung cancer. Top priority should always be yourself, whether you are the patient or the caregiver, and practice self-care. And know that sometimes it's okay to be sad, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be mad. And I think when you express that you were upset with the care that these doctors were providing for your father, yes. And I'm glad that you're able to embrace your feelings, and sometimes you need to step back, embrace them and step back, but do something that is self-nurturing for you. So for me, for instance, like I said, I do practice yoga, and yoga is something that brings me peace. Mind, heart, body, soul. And so whatever that is for you, take some time, like every day, whether it be 10, 15, 20 minutes, and just take some time for yourself. Because being a patient is hard, and being a caregiver of a loved one with lung cancer is also hard. And I can't say that I know what being a caregiver is like for a lung cancer patient, because I've been on the patient side. But I do know that it was difficult for my family members and for my friends. And they tried really hard to make everything as normal as possible for me. And I had to come to a realization that I have a new normal. And that's what I'm embracing now. You'll have to do adjustments and moderate, but to continue to live the life you were living before. Just do what you're able to do now, and hopefully
So,
that
yeah,
gives people
do
peace of mind.
do what you're able to do now. And funny enough, you mentioned Phoenix, Arizona. There was going to be a point in my life that my dad, because of his lung cancer, we were talking about moving out of here to a lower altitude. And one of the places that he picked was Phoenix. I don't know why, but he started Googling, and unbeknownst to all of us, we walk in one day to a local hospital where he was, and he goes, "Well, girls, you're going to have to move with me to Phoenix because they want me out of here." And I'm like, dude, my job is now the power of the internet, so don't worry about me. Don't worry about you. And of course, he was so concerned about me and his fiance and everything else that he wasn't taking care of himself while in the hospital. And I admit that fully. I mean, he was so concerned about me and my care that he wasn't taking care of himself, and then he became grumpy, and then he wanted every doctor and every nurse out of sight. So I don't think that they could have helped him anyway, but self-care is one of those things that you need, and that's why I went home. And as an end result of me going home, I at least got "I love you" out of him. I I don't think he understood the "I'm going home" part, but he did understand the "I love you" part. And so, as weak as I was, he was able to muster "I love you." But yeah, so as we march along as promoting lung cancer, let's do all we can. And please, 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 everyone who's listening to this right now on Thursday when it comes out, which would be the 27th, I believe, 2020, March 27th, 2020. Please heed the warnings, and please, while you're stuck in self-isolation, do not pick up the pack of cigarettes just to keep yourself company. Do not, because that is something that will lead to lung cancer, and I can't stress it enough. I cannot stress that enough. You need to heed the warnings. You need to not pick up the pack of cigarettes to keep yourself company.
Yes, for sure. And just remember that anybody with lungs is at risk. So regardless of whether you're a smoker or not, I mean, it happened to me, and we don't want it to happen to anyone. I mean, nobody plans their life around cancer, any type of cancer diagnosis.
No one
but if we can definitely increase that awareness and take that stigma out, and if we can increase research funding, then that gives people a higher probability to live longer once they are diagnosed. I was fortunate enough to catch this by accident, literally, but many are not. Many other lung cancer patients are not. Mm-hmm.
Many are not.
Because the symptoms do not show themselves until a much later stage when it's harder to treat.
Nope. And I knew my dad had cancer the whole time because of the way he was saying "I love you" to me. I love it. And granted, the guy said "I love you" to me, and he said "I love you" to his girls like there's no tomorrow. So the weaker he got, the "I love you" got weaker along with it. And so I knew that he had cancer the whole time, And so I tried to adjust my schedule around him, and finally it got to the point where he said to a doctor who I haven't met yet, he said to a doctor, I can't breathe. And so the doctor said, you go to the emergency room now, and then we'll just deal with it then. And turned it was an interesting show. Let's just put it that way. And so I'm happy to meet with the lung cancer survivor, and I'm happy to join you in the cause of raising awareness on lung cancer, because lung cancer funding, unlike breast cancer, is feeling far between. And you guys hear about breast cancer, and it's like, no, lung cancer needs to be equal to breast cancer. And Yovana, do you happen to know the numbers that we're looking for to find a cure for lung cancer?
There is no number in mind specifically, but I do know that lung cancer is the most underfunded of all the cancers, and yet it is the deadliest cancer. When you combine prostate and breast and colon cancer, lung cancer supersedes that on a year-to-year basis. But yeah, it's the one that receives the least amount of funding. And so that's why, as we're raising awareness, we're trying to increase research funding as well.
Yes. And I apologize for my coughing attack, you guys. Jeez. Yes, we are trying to raise awareness and research funding. I mean, I don't want anyone else to go through what my dad went through. So let's start raising awareness and banging the drum today as we all go through this coronavirus thing. And as I said, do not pick up a pack of cigarettes just because you're lonely and in splendid isolation, as Warren Zevon saying. And so if you will look up that on YouTube, you can sing along to Splendid Isolation. But do not pick up, and Warren Zevon also had lung cancer too. So I came to find that out doing my research, but don't pick up the pack of cigarettes. It can happen to anyone. It can just sneak up on you, but we need to find a cure, and we need to find a cure now for the generations that do have it, the generations that passed away from it, and yeah, we just need to find a cure. So, Yovana,
Yes.
do you have any closing thoughts for this interview?
I think it's very important that people realize that everyone can be affected by it, and that's why it's important that we do increase research funding and help find a cure, because with the proper medications, it would be ideal to treat lung cancer as a chronic illness instead of a death sentence. But we need more research funding for that to be able to become a reality. And that is what part of my cause is at this point in my life, and I think probably for the rest of my life. It will be to increase awareness and the stigma and make sure that we do come up with a cure, because nobody deserves lung cancer, regardless of whether you have a smoking history or not. Nobody deserves to die from this disease.
No one. And I sat through a heck of a lot of pain, and the oxygen compressors still. I'm scared. I am truly scared of oxygen compressors. Oxygen compressors are not my best friends. Even the portable ones are not my best friends, and people know that personally. You know me. I get freaked out around oxygen compressor because My dad had one for 9 days in my house, and I hate the noise, and that's what results in people with lung cancer. You land up on oxygen, and so I don't want to hear the noise of a oxygen compressor again. And so my biggest arch enemies right now are still packing tape, which that's another long story in itself why, and oxygen compressors. And people know that I don't like oxygen compressors. Now they know why. But it's interesting to see that lung cancer is the least funded out there. And so, Yovana, do you have any questions for me as we wrap this interview up?
Yeah. How would you say you're coming up on a year? I'm so sorry for the loss of your father. I think it's great that you are using your voice and your platform to raise awareness for a cause that has become near and dear to your heart because of the loss of your father. How do you think this, as you're coming up to this anniversary of your father passing away, how are you feeling about it?
Well, if I am really at peace with the whole situation, and I am there's nothing I could have done. I left my father thinking that I was going to go fight chemo with him. I was ready to bring my enforcements back down, including my girlfriend, to go fight chemo with me. I was ready to turn around and go fight chemo with him and sit beside him in the chemo chair and just keep company and just let his sense of humor go with chemo. But I am at peace with the whole thing. I know that doctors are doctors, and through this whole coronavirus thing, I'm learning that doctors are the best healers on the planet right now, and I am at peace with the whole thing. Now, granted, I was daddy's little girl. So as we do this interview, and I may post a picture on Instagram so you can see the picture I'm talking about, I'm actually looking at a picture of him with me skiing. And so I will be at peace with the whole thing. I knew that stage 4 is stage 4, and we did not know he had stage 4 until after he died. So I right now I'm at peace at the with the whole thing. I know that doctors are stretched to their capacity right now with the whole coronavirus thing, but we need, as individuals, to raise awareness about lung cancer. We need to raise awareness. We need to step away from the breast cancer end of it. We need to step away from the coronavirus end of it. Yes, I said coronavirus research can go away, but right now, and we need to focus on the underlying disease of lung cancer.
Yeah, and right now, actually, with the coronavirus, it is a big concern for the lung cancer community just because our lungs have already been exposed.
I bet. I wasn't
so much.
I
So,
but I bet
yeah,
now with the coronavirus, everyone, lung cancer patients, and I don't care if you're young, you're old, you're diagnosed, you're newly diagnosed, just be careful, please, to the people who are normally exposed to these lung cancer patients because they are at risk. They are at risk, and I don't want anyone on oxygen compressor. I don't want anyone diagnosed with any more diseases that were already out there. But all I can tell you is that we're all strong, but with lung capacity of lung cancer will take you down. It took my father down. It almost took Yovana down. And Yovana's a survivor. My father unfortunately passed away of a heart attack, but he was originally diagnosed with lung cancer. But just be careful. Just be careful, be careful, be careful. I can't stress that enough, you guys.
Yes, everybody stay home, practice social distancing, wash your hands, stay home.
Yep. Preach, Yvonne, preach, because you are at risk too because of your lung cancer and at risk because of cerebral palsy. So, yep. So I hope you guys enjoyed story of survival. I hope that didn't bring the tissue box out too much, and just know that we're doing the best we can to raise awareness about this deadly disease. And we need more research, we need more funding, we need more everything. And I hope you guys have a blessed day. Let's make this world a stronger and happier place for you guys. Thanks to you guys.
Thank you.
You just listened to Ask Gwen, the podcast. To become a guest in the show, visit our website at askgwen.weebly.com or call 816-591-3399. Just look for Danielle. Connect with Gwen on Twitter at WynKellyCharles and like our Facebook page at Butterflies of Wisdom. You can also purchase Gwen's book through Amazon.com or get a copy of the audiobook through Audible. Ask Gwen, the podcast.